Welcome one and all to Last Stop Penn Station podcast featuring Cary Silkin and Ian Riccaboni. They dive deep into Cary's wealth of stories, and no subject is off limits. From the world of wrestling to his ticket agency, growing up in New Jersey, drug-fueled underground days, hustling in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and endless days and nights in New York City, every story is worth telling.
Hello, welcome everyone to another exciting edition of Last Stop Penn Station. Ian Riccaboni, Cary Silkin, AJ from Basant Creative and Web Design, manning the soundboard. Cary, 19 years, 19th anniversary this past Friday. What an event it was.
It was wonderful. It was the best part about it. Best part about it is that what had happened.
Yeah, right.
The second best part about it for me was well, there's a lot of good things, but what I was going to say was. I had to duct tape Ian's mouth so that I wouldn't know any results. You know, I speak to Jay Lethal fairly, regularly. I talk to Bobby Cruz. I talk to Todd Sinclair, and I did not want to know any results. And I was talking to Bobby Cruz the night of the show, and it was like about 6 o'clock. We were talking about the upcoming Zoom and all this stuff, and I was asking him a couple of questions, and these questions would have led him to giving away spoilers.
Right.
But in the end, it was just such a good show. We could go match for match, but we don't need to. It was, pro wrestling the way I love it. Mm-hmm. Ring of Honor is alive and well. What did you think?
I loved it, and I really appreciate the fans who turned out to the Zoom. That's always fun. We did a 1 hour watch along, hour one. And I want to call something out. Death Before Dishonor 2019 was the first time we ever did the hour one, and it's been about 18 months. In that time, we've only got 18,000 viewers on that video on YouTube. We surpassed 30,000 within 24 hours. So people are interested. They're watching Ring of Honor. They're talking about it. We're trending throughout the night. It's always a good feeling to know that kind of a card got that kind of response, because we were hearing from everybody. Ron Funches, super, funny comedian, our friend. Taylor Williamson, another super funny comedian, was watching along. We heard from a lot of other folks. CM Punk chimed in. Loved Danhausen. Who doesn't love Danhausen? But he gave him permission to use the move, and then Kenta said, "No, I give him permission. You can." And
that wasn't even the main show.
That was hour one. It was amazing, and we were talking. Cary, I thought my MVP for the night was Tracy Williams, wrestling 2 matches against opponents that he wasn't prepared to face. But you had, I think, an even better pick.
Well, before we were on the air, I mentioned to Ian that I don't know if MVP is the right way to put it, or maybe Rookie of the Year. But if you sort of combine the two, Dak Draper.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty much a Ring of Honor. He's certainly not a rookie in pro wrestling. But in Ring of Honor terms, he's starting out. He's certainly not a veteran. And man, was he good.
He was great. And I was talking to somebody online about how they said, do you think, our COO Joe Koff said we have about 400 to 500,000 viewers each week. And somebody said, well, that was the number quoted a couple years ago in 2015. And I said, yeah, but at that time, all the guys on the roster had 5, 6 years, 7 years of television equity. We'd been building those guys in 2015 for 5, 6, 7 years. So if we're turning around and we're featuring Dak Draper, we're featuring Jonathan Gresham, we're featuring these stars. Tracy Williams, guys that we haven't seen on TV for 4, 5, 6 years. We're seeing them for year 1, year 2, year 3. I think we're doing something well if we're getting the same mileage out of stars that are really coming into their own.
And as an added caveat to something that I would... it was a little, I would always say, we should see some more legends. Well, they slapped me in the face with Homicide returning to Ring of Honor.
Amazing.
no, and I'm sure you would have wanted to tell me that just to shut me up, because I'm always saying to Ian, we should bring back some of these some guys. It's hard. A lot of them are with other companies, or if they're not, they're retired or this or that. But that was a good one.
That was a good one, and I had to bite my lip so hard because Matt Taven and myself, we do the COVID protocol. And one of the things is they test you about a week and a half before so that they make sure you're not coming to the bubble with COVID. And sure enough, I see somebody log into the video screen because you're on a group video chat with a physician or an RN or an NP. And on my thing, it said D-E-E. And I'm looking at him. And I'm like, no, that can't be. that can't be. And sure enough, it was Homicide. And what a return, and very nice tribute too on the shirt. That shows you the ties and the appreciation he has for Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I got to know him pretty well. Was I best friends with him? Not really, but we got to understand each other during Cary's time at Ring of Honor. He was such an important, am I right, 2-time champion?
Just once, but two of the biggest crowd explosions that have ever happened in Ring of Honor history.
Well, one of them was the night that Nigel, and I just went over this with Mike G in the soon-to-be-released memoirs.
Yeah.
Maybe in 2028 at the rate we're going.
We're getting closer.
But we did we're going over 2009, and the most important event in 2009 for me was the night that Brian and Nigel were leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we ever did a Last Stop Penn Station about that.
We haven't, no.
And not only did we get Jim Cornette, who was freshly fired from TNA, and I had a good rapport with him to come to New York, but also, I think it was, I don't know whose idea it was, but Homicide was available, and he'd been about a year. He might have been in TNA too for a brief period of time.
Yeah.
But he was not in Ring of Honor, is the point. And he's a New York guy.
Right.
So what other pop were you talking about?
Final Battle, when he wins the title.
Oh, yeah.
From Brian. And then the Cage of Death.
Oh, God.
When everybody's thinking, okay, it's 5-on-4. Ring of Honor's exhausted all their guys. And Cornette, or J.J. Dillon, Cornette, send him in. And he goes nuts, and he takes out every CZW wrestler.
When Jim's talking about this garbage, not liking the garbage wrestling, he wasn't bitching about that.
That told a hell of a story, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that was months and months of, you didn't see that every night. And I think even Jim will say,
right,
there's an exception. If you see it every night, it's garbage. If you save it for something different and special, and you come back to it once every couple years, I think he'd say it's different. But man, I got to call his finishing move, and man, that was something I didn't think I'd see, and that. I think that's.
I was surprised just with Rocky Romero being there.
Right? Yeah. I'll pull back the curtain a little bit, and there's people that are big Ring of Honor fans that listen. Ring of Honor and New Japan have the same relationship we've always had. We love their talent, they love ours, and it's great to have Rocky on board for commentary.
And you explained to me why it was not that he's not talented, but I just thought it was odd having Chris Dickinson. But if I was more astute with my New Japan current knowledge, I would have said, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, we got to get you up to speed on New Japan Strong, because we see Ring of Honor stars almost every week now in New Japan Strong, like Brody King, Bateman, Ray Orris, now Chris Dickinson. And what's cool about Chris Dickinson, I didn't know this until I was talking to him. He used to go to the Ring of Honor shows when he was 14, 15, 16 years old.
I shook his hand. He told me once.
And he's got all the ticket stubs. So he kept all of them. And the guy he looked up to was Homicide. Do you know who helped train him? Homicide. So now it was like me calling matches with Kevin Kelly, right? You're in there with somebody you've seen on TV who you respect. You want to emulate them a little bit. You want to take a little bit of and learn and do what they're doing. And That's a hell of a story. And we get to explain that on Ring of Honor television. People were saying, "Ooh, this looks like a mismatched group. What's going on?" Oh, Tony Deppin's not violent. The hell he's not. The other couple weeks ago, his back was all bloodied and glass in it. And you just haven't seen that in Ring of Honor yet from Tony Deppin. And then, why is Chris Dickinson with Homicide? Well, we get to tell that story coming up on Ring of Honor. It's really...
Don't spoil anything.
It's really exciting. And it took me a lot to not send you a text and say, holy crap, D's back. Homicide's back.
Well, I look forward to seeing him in person.
Absolutely.
He was funny. He was at a Ring of... Do you remember this? Maybe 2 years ago.
He and Xavier.
He was in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. Xavier came to Final Battle.
He was
18.
in Philadelphia.
Okay.
He was very quiet.
Yeah.
He was in the back. And I'm like, what's up, man? And he was very demure.
Yeah.
The opposite of, he goes, I'm just looking to get some work, and just, I go, well, he goes, I don't want to bother anybody, and I just let him be. I'm not going to be arguing with Homicide.
Well, there was a couple times during the pandemic when I know that we had him penciled in for some things. So all things kind of happened for a reason, and I'm glad that it eventually came to be. So,
well, it's a good thing that Steve Carino is not around Ring of Honor anymore. Those two guys.
Really?
They had a thing, man.
Even more than him and Colt when he tried to pour the Drano down Colt's.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
It was pretty, they had some bad blood, but the 19th anniversary was fabulous. It was fun doing the Zoom intro and saying goodnight to the fans with with you and Kevin Eck, and of course Mandy had to chime in.
Yeah,
because the Ring of Honor women's division is tournament coming up.
It's back. The tournament's coming this summer, and I'll let you in. I know some of the hardcore Ring of Honor fans. We have some competitors selected, and those will be announced soon. And there may even be some prelim matches, some precursors to the tournament that are going to be shown leading up to the tournament. I'll just leave it there. I don't want to give away too much, but there's some exciting developments on the women's division front. Maria Canales is heavily involved, and Maria said if we're not going to launch this with a bunch of matches, and if we're not going to launch it with the talent, we don't want to do it, and we're doing it right. And so there's going to be a lot of matches and content to learn who these female competitors are. Just as much attention given to that division as it should be.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. What else we got? Well, and don't forget, every Monday night is the watch party from the Ring of Honor TV from the weekend.
Yeah.
Tonight we saw the gauntlet match.
A gauntlet, yeah. Will Ferrara, Big Willie returning, looking shredded.
He went from Little Willie to Big Willie.
Looking like shredded Ed out there.
Yeah.
And then Wheeler Yuta. Fred Yeh got the win, but Cheeseburger debuting a new submission, La Nuda de la Muerte.
Could you translate that, please?
I think it's the Deathlock. I think.
Okay.
But it's kind of that weird. He traps the arms, the legs. It was what he submitted, I think, Eric Martin with.
Okay.
And Eric Martin, great showing. Dante, great showing. A lot of promise with the dojo wrestlers, and it's always great to see them.
And the opening bout, I forget already, Beer City Bruiser.
And Mike Bennett. Yeah, Bruiser tried to stab him with a beer bottle.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. What do you, geez. I mean, that would have got the Crusher banned from Milwaukee.
Thrown out of Milwaukee.
Yeah. Who's he getting his cues from? That's what I want to know. Well,
we'll be back at you next Monday with another watch party.
Danhausen, Brian Johnson 3. The big blow-off main event. That's coming next week.
Well, maybe Danhausen could pick me up via blimp.
There you go.
I don't have to drive. We trot along. That's not the right word. We romp down the road with the 55 and 5.
Yeah.
I think we're up to 76.
We're going to be 76 starts next Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 75 premieres tonight.
And we thank Conrad Thompson from Ad Free Shows, as well as the Poster of the Week. We've been having some fun with that.
Yeah.
Pulling out some good ones.
Yeah, so a lot of Florida, and we've had some San Francisco from Roy Shire, and we've had some benefits lately.
A lot of benefits.
Who knew there's so much fundraising going on in wrestling?
I got some more. I just got to dig them out, as well as some old Capitol ones. But yeah, I like sharing that with everybody. Oh yeah. You know what? We've been talking about these various documentaries and TV shows that have caught my eye. Maybe you have something that you'd like to tell us about. But AJ and myself have been watching this Aretha Franklin documentary, which was on, of all things, the National Geographic. That was a bad. You just wouldn't expect it.
Sure.
This looked more like a Showtime production.
Wow.
Or an HBO production. Yes, or an HBO production. We mentioned, I think, last week the Billie Holiday one.
Okay.
And this is a 10-part. It's called Genius, and one of them is about. There's a 10 parts on Picasso. And there's a big star who plays Picasso. Our friend Chris mentioned it. I forget who it is. But the Aretha Franklin's really good. I think we're up to part 7. She had a lot of stuff I didn't know about. She was involved with during the time of the Black Panthers and the Symbionese Liberation Army. You know, her father was a preacher, and she was introduced to. You know, she was civic-minded, not necessarily always with the right people,
right?
But she was a tough businesswoman. And now I'm going to forget the name. Not Clive Davis. Jerry Weintraub. I got that right? Jerry Wexler. Thank you, AJ. Was the producer, you know, from Atlantic. Did a million groups.
Yeah.
And she wanted to have her name, you know, she felt like she should get equal billing. There's a great one where they bring her to, you know, the famous Muscle Shoals.
Right, the recording studio.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's all these, you know, 20-something, they were all knockout musicians, you know, these session guys, you know, these 20-year-old white hippies. And she's like looking around like this. And she starts playing stuff, and these guys, you know, the drummer's coming in, the bass player, she's like, stop. You know, it's very interesting. And if you get a chance, we haven't finished it yet, but this gives me a lot of respect. No pun intended.
There you go.
It's funny, they don't even cover the respect song during the documentary. AJ was complaining, but most of her songs were covers.
Yeah, and that's we were talking about that with 24 Hours from Tulsa. There's about 1 million people that have done that. There's 1 million people that have done. I think of the Hollies. Some of the great Hollies songs are were done by other people.
Don't forget the Monkees.
The Monkees. I mean, and then they end up writing their own songs, which is an interesting twist. But the Byrds were the Byrds do Bob Dylan better than Bob Dylan, in my opinion. I like the Byrds sound a little bit more than Bob Dylan.
Well, the only miscue of more than one miscue, but was Jerry Wexler had the "Son of a Preacher Man" song, which
Dusty Springfield, yeah.
She didn't want to do it, Aretha.
Wow.
Thought it was disrespectful, or she was. There's a lot in there.
Yeah.
But very interesting. What a career she had.
Right.
You know,
amazing.
Multi-Grammy, really, really good.
Did WrestleMania, tie it back to wrestling.
That's right.
WrestleMania 3 and 23, I believe.
They must have paid a lot for her.
Oh God, yeah. That was the WWF's big here we are moment, right? In the big dome there. But I saw something that was interesting, and it felt a lot like One Night in Miami.
Okay.
Because it was called The Sit-In, and it was about the week Harry Belafonte sat in for Johnny Carson.
Now, what platform is this on?
It's on Peacock.
Okay.
So I changed I got the WWE Network. They gave me a warning and said, hey, this closes. You got to go to Peacock. And so I went, and for $9.99, you get, they're uploading stuff, and they're slowly. But they have, it's built for me, I think, because they have Fletch, which is one of my favorite movies. They have Basketball, which is another fun one that I like. But they also have Saturday Night Live. They have the run of that. That's already up there. They have The Office. They have Parks and Rec. if it's an NBC show, chances are that they have it.
I don't know how you have time. Me, I'm just sitting around here all day. You guys are, I used to be
Working.
in the office 24/7, but it isn't that way at the moment. And you with your, it's not a secret. Ian's got a day job.
Yeah. Treats me well.
And then ROH, not to mention your wife and your two beautiful children.
Yeah.
So I find it very tough for you to squeeze anything in.
I work in the margins. That's what I tell people. If there's an ounce of free time, I just got to keep going. Kind of like AJ with all the projects he's on. If you can pencil it in, you pencil it in. But I squeezed in this one with my wife. It's when we turned on the app, it was one of the first things that it said. It said Peacock exclusive. And
what year was it from? Do you know?
68. February of 68.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you talk about, you talked about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the hypothetical, Sam Cooke, Cassius Clay. Well, on this, they had throughout the week, and the premise, and this happened in real life, and it was a documentary, Johnny Carson said, hey, I want to promote equality. I want to get this message out, but I'm not the right person to do this. There's something going on in America right now. I'm not the right person to communicate what the black community might need. I need somebody to sit in for me. I want to do something. And he wasn't that...
You sure he wasn't on vacation for a week? Because sometimes...
Yeah.
Sometimes... I'm not saying Johnny Carson didn't say this, but sometimes he'd go on vacation.
Sure.
And Joan Rivers would be the host one night. And Don Rickles.
Right.
And I mentioned to AJ because it came up in the Aretha. She was trying... You know who Steve Allen is?
Oh, well, yeah. He was a wrestling commentator, but also...
He was a Tonight Show guy as well as Jack Parr. But
yeah.
I understand. But go ahead. So,
yeah.
So Harry Belafonte basically did a week of the Tonight Show.
Sat in for a week. Sadly, only 2 episodes remain. Sadly, they're not in color. They were shot. You could get it in color, but the remaining footage is not in color. The episodes that survived, though, were Dr. Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I would love that.
And so they have I think 15 minutes of. They have Martin Luther King's whole interview, and they have I think Bobby Kennedy's whole interview, and I think Aretha Franklin's performance.
Okay.
But it's Aretha. The whole week they had Aretha Franklin, they had Bobby Kennedy, they had Paul Newman, they had. A ton of just activists and Buffy St. Marie, the famous native African-American country singer. So, yeah, it was loaded. And Buffy St. Marie's still with us. Harry Belafonte's still with us. So they had interviews. They had some historic footage of some folks talking about the week. And it was a smash hit. It was just...
Well, it's interesting because 68 was the year that Bobby Kennedy was shot.
Yeah. Yep. And it was one of the threads that they pulled at was Harry Belafonte wanted Bobby Kennedy to announce he was running for president on the show.
Okay.
And because Harry Belafonte worked closely with Dr. King, and Dr. King essentially pulled Belafonte in and said, hey, if we need equality. Dr. King had just launched the Poor People's Party, which was expanded the mission of, beyond African Americans to just poor Americans. Bobby Kennedy went on the tour with Dr. King where he met just poor black folks, poor white folks. He was just going to poor towns and just trying to understand the plight of poor people. And Belafonte kind of was prescient and said, essentially, hey, if you're going to do this, do it now. Bobby Kennedy didn't. He waited because LBJ hadn't decided he wasn't going to run again yet.
Okay.
And he kind of stalled, and Hoover and Bobby Kennedy gets assassinated and all that stuff.
Crazy times.
Yeah. So, or Humphrey, I'm sorry, Herbert Humphrey. Hubert Humphrey, yep. So, yeah, it's amazing. They met a guy that recorded it on audio. So they only have footage of 2 of the episodes, but they have audio of 3.
Well, it's really good that any of it's, survived. That's very, very interesting and very cool historical stuff. Mm-hmm. Regardless of your age, it's important. It was, these years, these late 60s, just critical stuff going on.
Yeah.
So I will have to, I'm going to get, the Peacock's not available on the damn Fire Stick, and I looked it up online.
Okay.
Maybe I could get it on my TV apps, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
It's good. If you like the wrestling anyway.
Well, I have to have the wrestling at least.
And
but I'd rather see that show.
They have that. They have a lot of good. They have a Big Bird documentary on the man that played Big Bird, which looks really interesting. It looks way more interesting than you'd think. And then they have all the Saturday Night Live episodes. They have a lot of good movies. If it's made by Universal, there's a good chance it's on Peacock now. So early review is good. It's good service.
Yeah, before you know it, you're going to have so many apps and so many subscriptions. It's going to cost as much as
cable.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll figure it out. Last week was a very heavy duty episode about don't borrow money from the wrong people.
Yeah. Still thankful you're here with us after that.
Yeah, it made me think a lot about that era. And then my friend Bo, who is, once again, if you refer to our earlier Last Stop Penn Stations, who I worked with at Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium, and then was in New Orleans with me during that '85 Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. He sent me a picture. He sent me like 4 photos from the mid to late 80s.
Wow.
I had a beard.
Really?
I was a little heavier even.
Huh.
Yeah. And in one of the pictures, it was a rare picture of Freddy the Weeper.
Wow.
And, we keep talking about Freddy the Weeper, and I may repeat a story, but I just want to give the people a picture of, I will post the picture online of Freddy. Okay. Now, first thing about the Weeper is he hated anybody taking a picture of him. Just because, not because, I'm a ticket scalper. He just, no. Another odd thing about the Weeper, he never could sit in a chair or a couch where he would sit back. Huh. He would always sit like this.
So you're at the edge of your seat, leaning forward at about a 65-degree angle.
And I'd be like, Freddie,
just sit back.
Right. That was one of his many quirks. But he was my rabbi.
Okay.
As we've mentioned, for my tickets for my entree to the street. And Freddie was he was, when he went to do tickets, he would say, "I'm going to work," but in theory, he really never worked a day. The only job he was known to have ever had, harken back to his years. Now, I met him when I was working with Bo at Yankee Stadium and Shea, 81, 82, 83, 84, I got to know all this, not that I was talking to every scalper, but they were around. But Freddie was a fixture. And if you would have went to concerts like I was going to at the Garden in the 70s, you would recognize Freddie. Because back then, there wasn't a ton of guys. And Freddie's, like so many people, they just knew Freddie's face. So prior to working with Bo, I remember Freddie from going to, the Garden and going to the wrestling. I don't know if I ever dealt with him or talked to him, but when I worked with Bo, that's when we, over those early years, he was one of the guys that was a little more polite, a little nicer, and we just struck up a rapport. And it wasn't until I came back from, I went to New Orleans, and then I came back during Christmas time, leading up to what was going to be the Super Bowl and the guy doing the poster and having the opportunity to have Bo come down there to Truth Prize Souvenirs. And so in that, where I'm going with this, when I came back from New Orleans, December, like late November and December, I was going into the city every day. So that's when I started, Freddie never wanted to deal with the public. Like if a ticket broker gave him like a half dozen or a dozen leftover seats for a Knicks or Ranger game, Freddie always wanted to be like, down by the OTB or in, hiding in the Blarney Rock. He was always, the Heat. So prior to me, he would let these other guys, sell his tickets. Thus, he would always be getting short-caked. And Freddie was an easy touch. Freddie was a much easier touch than a lot of these other guys. So once I got to know Freddie, and after coming back from New Orleans, and I was even in last week's story with don't borrow money from the wrong people, I was dealing with Freddie all the time. Like when that whole thing happened, Freddie's like, why'd you do that? He didn't have $2,000 to give me. But anyway, so when I got to know him, I would ask him what did you do? Like before the ticket thing? He would, I was hanging out in pool halls. I'm like, so let's see. Freddie was maybe 15 years older than me.
Okay.
And he credits his downfall. Well, prior to his downfall, he fancied himself in legend as a championship bowler and a par golfer.
Okay. Did he ever bowl a 300? Did he have any?
No, he never would make it. But he said, and he was very heavy.
Yes.
So, it's like, picking on Jackie Gleason, like in the honeymooners.
Yeah.
Like, let me show you how to do that. But Freddie's, the only job that he had, and it was 20 years before I knew him, was he claimed to have been a caddy.
Oh, okay.
And he was a caddy. And he did have another job. Every year, there was like services where, let's say you and your family have a winter home in Florida,
okay,
but you don't want to drive there.
Sure. So
there were services. So Freddie would drive someone's car.
Oh, okay.
Not in it, like there was a company.
Sure. And then they would fly down?
The people would fly down. So
yeah.
Freddie would drive this car down to Florida, and he would always stay. He would like northern Miami. He would stay at a quality, fine hotel. The hotel was such fine quality that I remember, like, this had to be after I was like working with him, 87, 88. He would go down for a couple of weeks and, call me at 1:00 on the payphone. Let me know what's going on, right? So that were the only two jobs he really had.
Wow.
And I would ask him, like, well, how did you get involved with the tickets? I don't really think I ever got a clear answer.
Yeah. But
it all tied into the track.
Oh, you mentioned he hung out there. He almost, quote unquote, lived there.
He died there.
Oh, didn't know that.
We blew our ending here, but that's okay. Freddie, when I asked him about his infancy in the ticket business, they had the OTBs in New York.
Right.
So he lived in Teaneck, and he always took care of his mother. His father passed away, I think when he was a teenager, and he took care of he stayed with his mother, and he never got married, but there was always this lady.
Huh.
And he never would say, I knew her name was Nancy.
Yeah.
But he would always call her the woman's asking me for more. Right? And she lived down the shore. And so once in a while, Freddie would. I drove one time with Freddie to like Wall Township,
the home of the great Rhett Titus.
Me and Baby Dumplings used to go, woman. But so Freddie was caring, and he was codependent too, like so many of us are, and so I would ask him about this. How did you get into this? Mm-hmm. It was never clear, but it was going to the OTBs and being in the city, and he was near the Garden.
Yeah.
And there eventually was an OTB right in Penn Station.
Okay.
And when Freddie started in the early 70s, there was only a small crew of these full-time scalpers. We've mentioned most of their names on here. There was Silent Sidney. Mm-hmm. There was Lenny the Mooch. Now, Lenny the Mooch didn't matter if it was 90 degrees in July or it was -2 in the balls cold January. He would always have a big coat with a lot of pockets. That's because he could shove tickets and be right. And then there was another guy, Jake, little Jake. There was just a handful of guys. So back in in the early 70s, then there was the guy that spun the gate, Tony Pizza. It was another guy, Jack Balloon.
Oh, that's a new one. I've heard of Jack Balloon.
But there wasn't a lot of guys.
And you'd think, if you did the math, if I'm 1964 in Washington, D.C., and I see these Beatle tickets are going bananas and they sell out and there's a line around the building to get in, and I know they're coming to San Francisco, or I know they're coming to, I see the news. I'm thinking, well, crap, I should get some of these. I could probably sell them.
Well, Freddie got started in the early 70s, say. Mm-hmm. So he learned about digging, if it was Wings Over America, and he knew these bums from Penn Station. He was always surrounded by, like how in the Peanuts, Linus is the cloud of dust.
Yeah,
Freddie would have Pigpen, excuse me. Freddie would have a cloud of bums because they always knew Freddie was a soft touch, and guys like Radio John, guys like The Mummy, guys like Tommy Indio, guys like Dumplings. They'd always be around Freddie because, eventually Freddie would say, "Oh, check the window, see if they released any Springsteen. See if they released any Springsteen or U2 or whatever was the hot item. Oh, see if they released the Madonna." Once in a while you got lucky, and but these guys, and I've said this before. And Freddie included, they would go every day to Penn Station as if it was their office to the OTB. This way, we're talking pre-internet, pre-cell phones.
Yeah.
And some of these guys, like the aforementioned Little Jake, the aforementioned Lenny the Mooch, Silent Sidney, They were Ranger and Knicks season ticket holders.
Ah, okay.
Sidney, from being around there for so long, he knew some of the guys in the box office. So if the Stones were playing in 1970, he'd get seats without digging. And so they would go every day. So no matter what event or non-events there were, they were just hanging out. But
could you? Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Could you do business right kind of out in the open?
You'd walk in the OTB.
Yeah. Did anybody?
No. And there was another odd thing going on in the OTB. There was a guy named Turk.
Okay.
Really good guy. Now, this is in the 80s, and there wasn't a million tracks. Let's say they were showing Aqueduct.
Okay.
And maybe there was another track, Gulfstream in Florida. 2 tracks.
Yeah.
Wasn't like, you ever go in to see an OTB, there's like 14.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just say it was the 3rd race at Aqueduct. Well, when the OTB would shut the window, which would be like 90 seconds before the race, no more bets, just like a roulette wheel.
Yeah.
Turk would take action. These guys would run, give you 10 to win on the 4-horse. And
Yeah.
so it was just very odd. But Freddie hung out there. He was classic AJ. He was a cigar smoker, right? But he was the kind of guy that would have like one cigar that would last all day. Yeah. And one cigar that lasts all day. And we mentioned this on the poster of the week. Freddie had to drink to drive.
Oh.
I never saw him getting,
Oh my goodness.
This is the 80s. Things were different.
Things were crazy.
But,
you guys barely had seatbelts in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
And he would always be drinking. And even though he was probably a good 100 pounds overweight, his classic thing was, he knows Ralph needs a couple dollars. Hey, Ralph, you want to split a sandwich? And the mama goes, what are you talking about, Freddie? Just get a whole sandwich. We get a whole sandwich. Every time we want to split it,
Yeah.
Freddie was a big guy. So Freddie would send people for errands, whether it was to the ticket window, whether it was just to go to the store to get a sandwich or to get more drinks. And he was always on the outskirts. And guys would now, in my era, in this 87, 88, 89, well, it went from that early era I was talking about with 5 or 6 guys. Now there was like 50, 70 guys at these events.
Yeah.
And guys would just bother you. What do you got? What do you got? They'd come there with no tickets and no money.
Oh, geez.
And if they knew you had tickets, they'd want to earn. That was they'd want to earn. Like, what do you? This way they could get a customer.
Yeah.
And Freddie would go and be like, oh, you can bring the heat here.
Yeah.
So, and he was right. But eventually,
well, Cary, the ghost of Freddy the Weeper
don't bring the heat around.
interrupted our recording.
Because he was always ducking and dodging.
He was, just like this recording. So we're going to pick it back up. We had some audio difficulty there.
That's okay.
We're going to pick it back up. We're talking about Freddy the Weeper.
Right. And I was mentioning about one cigar, it would sort of last him the whole day. And I was mentioning about his drink, and he wouldn't just drink while he was driving. He'd be drinking like all day.
Oh, God.
But he could handle it. And he was a beer man until suddenly they had champagne.
Champagne.
Did you ever hear that?
That's champagne beer?
Yeah, it was
geez.
like and they had those fruity
Wine coolers.
wine cooler. Thank you.
Yeah.
He transformed to wine coolers.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm gonna tell us a story real quick and get on to Freddie's later days. And I know we've told this before, but it's just you just can't do this without mentioning it again. There's many podcasts that repeat the stories.
Sure.
But real quick, it just dawned on me. Freddie used to be so timid. When there was an event like the U.S. Open, which was really good in the 80s, McEnroe and Jimmy Connors, right?
Yeah, and then even into the late 80s, Agassi starts to break out 89 and then Sampras. And,
right. There was always money to be made but there was always, they called them the moral squad. Same guys that would arrest people for picking up hookers.
Yeah.
These low-level crimes, buying drugs, but they never would go after the drug dealer.
Right.
Easy targets.
Yeah.
They were the guys the moral squad. And there was a nickname for the cops. Like if you were on the street, Freddie would go, Oscar, Oscar. And that would mean that there was a cop coming.
Yeah.
And usually at the Garden, when the moral squad came out, it was like the same guys. Same guys at Yankee Stadium, 81 games.
Yeah. Same
guys at Shea Stadium. But for some reason at the U.S. Open, he was always scared. And so the idea of the U.S. Open, besides to try to, obviously make money, would be early in the session to try to find somebody who was selling tickets. The big ticket wasn't the finals. It was the semifinals. Just like with right now with the NCAA.
Right.
Well, if they had a full crowd, you get to see the 4 teams with one ticket. So with the tennis, you would get to see the last 4 men's players.
Makes sense.
And I think Friday was the women's, but it just wasn't as popular. So the hope would be that on the week before the last week, some little old man's going to go, I've got 4 semifinals. So Freddie would station himself so far away in these distant parking lots that were almost by like LaGuardia Airport.
We have not. I would remember this. We have not told this story.
Because yes, there was parking, but considering you needed to be in the flow. At Shea Stadium, where the 7 train is.
You get off the 7 and you get right in.
Or the Long Island Railroad.
Right.
That boardwalk.
Yeah.
That's where the action was. But, Freddie did not want to get busted. So once in a while, he'd get lucky. He's only getting like 1% of the traffic.
Right.
But there would be no competition. And that's the way he operated, which brings me to the story which I believe we told earlier on Last Stop Penn Station, but if this doesn't wrap up Freddie in a nutshell, nothing does. There it was the 88 or 89, were the Mets in the Mets, of course, were in the World Series in 86.
86. 89, they were in the playoffs.
Well, it was the 89 playoffs. Yeah. And Freddie had some tickets that a broker had that he was, he didn't, it was easy to sell tickets. Guy, whatever, he had an extra 4 or 6 tickets. And maybe we had picked up a couple. And we're out at Shea Stadium. It's the old Shea Stadium. And Freddie's...
Sorry, it's 88.
88. Thank you.
It's 88, yeah.
And Freddie's in the car. And I'm like, well... He's like, oh... It was a night game. And it's like 6:30. And it's buzzing. And so he was so nervous. He didn't want me to get in trouble either. I'm like, look, we got to sell these tickets. We're going to get some good money. Maybe
they're playing the Dodgers too.
Right? Maybe you're going to get for some shitty field boxes down the line. Not shitty, but some field boxes that are near the foul pole. You get on the street $150 a piece. That's big money.
Yeah.
What is it? 35 years ago. But anyway, so we're in the car, and Freddie suddenly realized he had run out of alcohol.
Uh-oh.
And now, if you're at Yankee Stadium, you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You just run around right to that next block.
61st, yeah.
Right. Yeah. You just go into one of those bodegas, grab a 6-pack or whatever. Well, at Shea, you either had to go to one stop to Flushing, or I believe it was like 168th Street.
That's if you've never been to Shea or Citi Field, it's in the middle of nowhere, more or less.
So Freddie says to me, oh, can you run to the store? My nerves are shot. And this is when he was drinking this Pink Passion wine cooler. Oh, get me a 6-pack of the Pink Passion. He goes, hurry up. I go, well, why don't you drive me to the store? He goes, he didn't want to drive me because maybe one of the other scalpers that he entrusted would have a sale. So I took the train, one stop. I didn't go to Flushing. I went the other way.
Gotcha.
And I knew right off there was like 2 bodegas on the corner. I go into the to where the beers and the milks and the sodas were, and I'm looking for the Pink Passion. And they didn't have the 6-pack, but they had the 84-ounce jumbo. Not 64 ounce, the 84 ounce. So I'm thinking in my head, let's see, 6 times 12 is 72. Oh shit! He's getting an extra 12 ounces here.
The bonus,
right? So I get the big jug, and now I take the train back, and Freddie's like, I gotta. He didn't want to just sit still. He was always like as if these police were like pinning on him. So I find him. And I run up. He's like, "Oh, why'd you take so long?" I'm like, I'm just the first 2 trains that came. I go here, and he grabs this jug, and he was expecting a 6-pack, and he goes, "Oh," and he's unscrewing the top, and I figured he'd be happy, and as he takes it. He had to do it with 2 hands. This was something that was meant to be poured into a cup.
Sure.
It wasn't even like a quart of beer.
Yeah.
And he takes his giant jug, and he's like, glug, 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 glug. Oh, why did you get me this big thing? Glug, 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 glug. That was Freddie. And, coming out of that period of time, I cleaned up my act. I wound up, and we'll be getting back into this eventually with the podcast. I wound up, moving out here. Freddie was integral in the early years. When I was working with Bill at Union, Bully's friend, Freddie would bring in some tickets. Then I was working with Farrell out here. Freddie had the connection with the old man at the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
He had our other friend that had the T-shirt shop that had the Ticketmaster. And, he'd been around. He was always trying to win over favor at that Prozie's.
Oh, right.
The one with the program killed it. He's like, "Oh, old man Prozie. Oh, I know I can get him to deal with me." He always tried. And if anything, he would sell things too cheap. He would never, instead of trying to, get top dollar, he taught me like we were divvying up the money after, it was like a Rangers Bruins game on like a Saturday afternoon. And he had like a dozen tickets from brokers. And I go, we sold them for, let's just say an average of $35 each. And Freddie's, I said, well, because I'm this is the heart of my addiction. I'm like, well, what are we going to split? He's like, well, you got to give the broker back the right money, or he won't give you the tickets. He knew not to say, 10 each.
Yeah.
He gave, let's say the tickets were $15. Saturday afternoon game against the Bruins, he gave him back $20 a piece, whatever. He knew to do the right thing. So Freddie was integral with Bill, with Farrell, and then when I opened Rave Review, he was, loyal. So it was funny. It went to a reverse because in the end, when I was doing full-time brokering in the early and mid 2000s, I would send my extra tickets to him.
Oh, wow.
And get back bottom dollar. But when you put tickets on the street, it wasn't because he was trying to fleece me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter. He would always complain like, "Oh, why are you giving me these?" Like let's say it was who was a hot basketball team in the mid-early 2000s?
The Cavaliers with LeBron
Right.
James.
Fine.
Yep.
Knicks against Cavs. Even if the Knicks were stinking.
Sure, the Cavs
That was
were
a
still
hot
ticket.
game. Oh, it's a Tuesday night. He just didn't like the street. But he was a kind man. And I got a phone call in, it's got to be like 7 or 8 years now. This guy named Tomato, another classic character who we'll get into. But in later years, Freddie's mother passed away. And after she passed away, he was, even though he never worked a day in his life, he used to always get a tax return.
How do you do that? Did he declare
From your losses at the horses.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
And he paid so at the end of his life, he got into some seniors kind of housing.
Yeah.
He got some kind of check, not what he was supposed to.
Wow.
But some kind of Social Security.
Right.
And he would go to the Meadowlands every day. And Tomato, he would still be involved in the tickets, but only when someone would give him tickets. He didn't do any more digging, maybe if it was convenient. And I got a phone call from Tomato, Mike, who was friends with Freddie and sort of looked after him. Freddie was now close to 70, and he was just like, Cary, I don't even want to tell you this. Freddie, they found Freddie. He died on a freezing, he had an asthma problem.
No.
And leaving the Meadowlands racetrack on a cold, how cold it is out at the, you ever go to a football game there?
I did in
Holy
2008.
smokes.
Yeah, the temperature was 32, but the wind chill was 14.
It feels like it's -2.
Yeah, the wind used to whip around that area.
And Freddie passed out, and before anyone, by the time anyone got to him, he was gone, and he was just, he was very, very, very important to me. He protected me on the street with all these knuckleheads. He helped me, and I think he used to come to Ring of Honor.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, like the old guard. Sid knew him.
Wow.
And he was proud. He was proud of me.
Yeah.
And when I talked to Bo, or I talked Dustin knew him well.
Wow.
And talk about a character.
Yeah.
And all these characters. But I just wanted to give a little picture of Freddie, and I'll put up a literal picture, a rare literal picture of him.
So we can honor him.
Yeah, and we're taking a break from Last Stop Penn Station. Our producer AJ is going on a well-deserved vacation, so we might be. I think we're going to miss 1 week. Yeah, we're going to miss 1 week.
Okay.
So everybody who enjoys listening to these crazy stories, we'll be back at you this drops on Friday. So we'll be missing one Friday, but we'll be back at you. But any questions about Freddie?
Jeez, I think you've answered a lot of them. It's amazing to hear. Amazing to hear more about him, and he sounds like he wasn't in the right line of work. It sounds, he had too big of a heart.
He did,
yeah,
absolutely,
too big of a heart to be super successful, which I feel like might have helped him get out of the track. He might have just spent it at the track, or might have just helped his mom, or might have did something.
It's another thing.
Yeah.
The way he would, he didn't always do this. He was a scratch better. You know what that means?
Oh, not rub-offs.
You bet, no. Horse.
Okay.
You bet favorites.
Interesting.
But he would bet he would rather bet $200 on a horse that was like the best horse in the race. Like the odds were like 1-2.
So you don't.
And
get
the second
100.
horse is 4-1, and then it's 5-1, 8-1.
Right.
He'd rather bet $200 to show.
Wow.
For third.
Yeah.
The only way the horse is not going to come in third is if the jockey falls off or the horse has a heart attack. And I remember one time there was a Kentucky Dirt. It was one of those big races at Belmont.
Yeah.
And he bet $700 to show. On the, and it, you know what the payout was? Like $720. I'm like, what? You know, and the name of this episode, Eric, who helps me with these notes, is, Freddie's moniker, and you know his moniker. Oh, why did I get involved? So, yeah, good. I love you, Freddie. You'll always be remembered here.
What a fitting tribute to what sounds like an amazingly nice man that was.
Well, one last thing.
Yeah.
His last name was...
It's not the Weeper?
No. He didn't want anyone to know his last name.
Okay.
His last name was Yobbs. Yobbs.
Wow.
So when I started doing well and, I found out, like most ticket brokers and other businesses do, you could get American Express cards for your employees. You could say... The name is, Willie Maboop.
Yeah. You get one, yeah.
Right. So it was like a rib. I gave him a card. He finally, because in case he needed it for tickets.
Yeah.
And I called him Fred Fobbs. Fobbs. And he was like, oh, why'd you put Fobbs?
Oh. Well, thank you, Cary, for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I learned a lot about Freddy the Weeper. I had the questions, and they've been resolved at this point. But I have some more questions for you, and I'll save them when we get back to the Lehigh Valley. We're still going to Disney World at some point, right?
Yes, we are.
All right, that sounds good to me. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to getting my next shot tomorrow.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. That makes all three of us fully vaccinated.
And now you don't have to schlep up to the coal country.
Yeah, the Lehigh Valley Hospital did a nice thing. They scheduled me at a time that doesn't exist anymore, and they called me to ask if I'd like to come in an hour after that. I was scheduled for 7 in the morning. They said, hey, can you come in at 8? I said, yeah. And they said, oh, we see you're in Allentown. Would you like to come to Cedar Crest?
Amazing.
Yeah, some very nice people there and helping me out getting my second shot. I'm looking forward to it. And
Did Sarah get it?
Yeah, so that's both of us in our family. My parents got their first doses.
Beautiful.
Parents-in-law got their second. So hopefully we'll all make it through this without too much damage here. So fingers are crossed and looking forward to it. But looking forward to 2 weeks from now when we'll all get back together.
Yeah,
again.
Please subscribe to Last Stop Penn Station. Get a shirt off Pro Wrestling Tees. Subscribe to the 55 and 5 on Ian's YouTube channel or on both and on the ad-free shows.
That's right.
And we enjoy bringing these to you.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Cary. And thank you for listening. It's been another edition of Last Stop Penn Station.
For listening to Last Stop Penn Station podcast. Rate, review, like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or at laststoppennstation.com.